Imagine this, you are given two options to choose from. Buy a very old, let's say 5 years old flagship, or settle for a recently released mid-range phone. What would your pick be? The flagship or the mid-range? If you do end up on either side, you have to deal with some trade-offs, and I'll be explaining what they are to you to better aid you if you actually had to decide. Hello, my name is Bright, and if you are new here, I'm a guy that is obsessed with topics on tech and games, and sometimes make videos on them, so hit that like button and maybe subscribe if this is your type of jam. Software updates. This is arguably the major trade-off you have to deal with if you decided to go with the flagship. On average, a phone company typically promises 2 to 5 years of software updates for every phone they release. The S10 Plus, for an example, had its last major OS update in 2022 and its last security update in April 2023. This means that as of April 2023 to recent, the S10 Plus no longer receives any kind of software updates, and this opens a huge backdoor for hackers to take advantage of. To an average user, this might not be much of a problem, but it still exists, and someone like me that eagerly waits for new features that comes with every major Android OS update, this is a huge turn-off. This problem of course doesn't apply to new mid-range, as they still have 2 to 5 years ahead of them. Performance. This is where your decision going with an old flagship starts to feel right. The S10 Plus are a good old sample case, debuted with a Snapdragon 855 processor. That in today's age is perfectly capable of running most games and apps with a relatively smooth and usable experience. That is in stark contrast to our mid-range processors that hovers between the Snapdragon 6 series for the lower mid-range to the 7 series on the higher end of the spectrum. The phone I'm recording this video on now is on the higher end with a Snapdragon 778G processor, and while I can comfortably play games on it, the performance is in no way able to beat when I played games on the S10 Plus. Display. Old flagships often debut with high resolutions, as in the case with the AMOLED screen on the S10 Plus. Mid-range phones on the other end mostly debut with screens with higher refresh rates than most old flagships. Camera performance. You all have to agree with me that camera performance is the category that most mid-range has to cut corners to maximize the price to performance ratio. The end result being weaker sensors than the much larger, better sensors on their flagship counterparts. Price. On average, you can find something like the S10 Plus for prices between $153 to $250 on most major online stores. That's you getting a flagship camera, processor, display, build quality, all for less than $250. If you do find a mid-range phone at the same price, please do compare the spec sheets of the phone with an S10 Plus and get the same feeling of emptiness that someone who buys the same new iPhone every year gets. Feature sets. Most sophisticated features a phone could have, for example, water resistance, wireless charging, quick charging, are mostly reserved to flagship devices, leaving the mid-range counterparts with mostly scraps. Back to the first question asked, an old flagship versus a new mid-range. Before I answer this question, ask yourself this first. Do you prioritize flagship features at an incredibly low price? If so, go for an old flagship. But if you prioritize new features, software updates, better battery life, and a little bit more future proofing, by all means get a mid-range.